changing, for we are connected. Anywhere in the world, Pinoy, we are all connected. Anywhere in the world, 7,100 islands, one Philippines, one network, PBS. Pinoy, we are one in mind, one in heart. We can feel it, we're connected. Together we will explore a brighter path to progress. We are united, we're connected. Anywhere in the world, Pinoy, we are all connected. Anywhere in the world, 7,100 islands, one Philippines, one network, PBS.
This is DWBR of the Philippine Broadcasting Service, 104.3 on FM. Music and talk, nice and easy. The time is 12 o'clock. Good afternoon. Here is the 12 o'clock edition of the Network News. President Benigno Aquino III is back in Zamboanga to direct the military operations against rogue elements of the Moro National Liberation Front, or MNLF Miswari faction. Marie Louise, in the meantime, reports Malacanang trusts that the peace negotiations between the government and the Moro Islamic Liberation Front will not be paralyzed. We have more from our Malacanang reporter.
Palace officials say Moro National Liberation Front founding chair Nur Miswari is failing at his attempt to stop the peace process. Presidential spokesman Edwin Lacerda said President Aquino believes that the process would be hastened. The GPH-MNLF panels are discussing the last two annexes, power sharing and normalization. Malacanang appeals to all sectors to keep the faith in the peace process. President Aquino is still in Zamboanga City to direct operations against the MILF. Marie Peña Ruiz for PBS News.
Heavy but sporadic fighting entered its 8th day in Zamboanga City as government troops backed by armored vehicles continued to battle Moro National Liberation Front, or MNLF forces, holding dozens of civilians hostage. The exact number of slain rebels was not immediately available, but the Armed Forces of the Philippines, or AFP, said at least 53 were killed, 9 wounded, and 48 others either captured or surrendered. The AFP said more than 100 rebels who were taking orders from Ustad's Malik are still scattered in 5 areas. Authorities said the presence of hostages being used as human shields have made it difficult to dislodge the rebels from their positions. In the meantime, a senior United Nations official in the country called for an immediate end to the violence in Zamboanga City, saying a United Nations humanitarian team is ready to deliver aid to people affected by the clashes. Humanitarian coordinator Luisa Carvalho urged both sides to respect and protect the rights of civilians, especially women and children. Carvalho also urged both sides to avoid unnecessary human suffering by reaching an agreement to end the standoff. 8 days of armed clashes have caused more than 76,000 people to seek refuge in 20 evacuation centers across the country, or rather across the city. As many as 236,000 residents are reportedly affected by the violence. A curfew imposed last week is still in place from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. Zamboanga City now has more than 65,000 internally displaced persons thanks to the still unresolved crisis with Muslim rebel forces in the southern city. Alvin Baltazar reports.
Affected families in connection with the continuing Zamboanga City crisis now are at 13,482 based on the latest update by the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council. Based on the records of the NDRRMC, the mentioned number of affected families represent more than 67,000 individuals from 13 barangays of the city. Of the 22 evacuation centers established in the city, so more than 11,000 families are already staying in the said number of evacuation centers. Records of the agency further disclose that 20 houses have been totally burned, which can be found in the barangays of Santa Catalina, Rio Hondo, and Santa Barbara. Alvin Baltazar for PBS News.
Senator Miriam Santiago has refiled her lobbying accountability bill, or Senate Bill number 393, aiming to make public the lobbying activities done with government officials. This amid the scandal allegedly involving lawmakers dealing with non-government organizations or foundations in the conduct of the Priority Development Assistance Funds. The bill was originally filed in 2007. Jojo Ismail reports.
Amid the scandal allegedly involving legislators dealing with non-government organizations, NGOs, in the conduct of the Priority Development Assistance Funds, or PDAF, Senator Miriam Santiago refiled the Lobbying Accountability Bill, or Senate Bill number 393, aiming to make public the lobbying activities done with government officials. The bill was originally filed in 2007. Santiago said that while the records of the deliberations of the Senate and the House of Representatives are open to the public, the behind-the-scenes negotiations are not. Lobbying activities greatly influence the government's policy decisions and the legislative process. Lobbyists can change how proposed laws are worded and eventually executed. The public needs to know how much influence these lobbyists have over government officials, particularly Congress, the senator said. The bill defines lobbying as oral and written communication to public officials intended to introduce, develop, or name or amend legislation or government policy, including influencing the exercise of lawful authority or power and expenditure of public money. Under Santiago's proposed law, lobbyists are required to register under the Securities and Exchange Commission, and they are also required to disclose various details, including the lobbyist's direct interest in the outcome of the lobbying activity and the name of the legislator to whom the lobbying activity is directed. For PBS News, George Ismael, Senate.
The Department of Justice is filing the first batch of charges of plunder against pork barrel scam queen Janet Napoles and an unspecified number of lawmakers. The second batch of complaints would be those involved in the misuse of the 900 million peso Malampaya Fund accessed by Napoles through the Agrarian Reform Department. Highly placed sources involved in the National Bureau of Investigation, or NBI probe, said Napoles and 49 others would be charged with plunder or malversation of funds before the Ombudsman. Probers have classified lawmakers into those who habitually misuse their pork barrel and those who fell for the scam only once. Justice Secretary Laila De Lima said the first batch of complaints would be against those involved in the pork barrel scam repeatedly. The Energy Regulatory Commission, or ERC, said renewable energy developers willing to go to off-grid areas will be granted cash incentives under the universal charge for missionary electrification. Albert Sebastian reports.
Under Resolution number 21 issued by the ERC, RE developers shall be entitled to a cash generation base incentive per kilowatt hour generated, equivalent to 50% of the universal charge for power needed to service missionary areas. The proposed cash incentive shall be chargeable against the UCME or the cost recovery mechanism aligned for off-grid areas and being applied for with the ERC by the NAPOCOR SPAG. In fact, the bargaining stance of the Department of Energy with RE developers, primarily those being leveled with expensive feed-in tariff or FIT, like solar technology, would be to go to the off-grid areas because that is where the proposed energy generation is badly needed. This is Albert Sebastian reporting for PBS News.
The Securities and Exchange Commission, or SEC, is now looking into the list of registered foundations with a fine-tooth comb. SEC Chairperson Teresita Herbosa said they have also adopted several measures to stop foundations from being used in pork barrel anomalies. The SEC currently has 259,000 registered non-government organizations, or NGOs, of which some 20,000 are foundations. Among the measures the agency has adopted is to post in their website the warning for the public not to deal with foundations if not checked with the SEC. Herbosa said they are now checking if several foundations have the same set of officers as in the case of those owned by Janet Napoles. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas says financial markets should by now be ready for the likely tapering of the United States Federal Reserve since its announcement in May. Bangko Sentral Deputy Governor Diwa Gunigundo said many markets, if not all, have already factored in this event should the Federal Reserve make its move. Gunigundo at the same time admitted they have no idea of the timing and pacing of a reduction. Niema Portiz reports.
The Fed is expected to reduce its massive stimulus program, and all eyes are now on the Federal Open Market Committee meeting on September 17 to 18, that is tomorrow and the day after, during which such action is foreseen to be announced. Fed Chairman Ben Bernanke in May already hinted the U.S. Central Bank could reduce its monthly bond purchases, causing volatility, particularly in emerging markets, as investors move away from them and trip back to the U.S. Gunigundo says that just to put everything in context, the $85 billion worth of asset purchases a month represents a very small amount of the total accommodative action on the part of the U.S. Fed, looking at the total of both the asset-backed and mortgage-backed securities purchased by the U.S. Fed and the U.S. Treasury. Gunigundo adds that to him, the more important thing is the signal this development sends, and that while monetary authorities should be worried at this point, they should have prepared in terms of monetary policy and in terms of the market their portfolio decision. Niema Perdiz, PBS News.
Senator Grace Llamanzares has filed a resolution urging the Senate to look into the huge disparities in the prices of oil products. Llamanzares said they need to look into the possible price manipulation, cartelization, monopoly, and similar anti-competition moves by the big three oil companies. She cited the case of Negros Occidental, where the prices of oil products are higher by 5 pesos than in metropolitan Manila. Her resolution number 104 also urges the Senate Energy Committee and other Senate panels to review the 1998 deregulation law. The oil deregulation law bars the Department of Energy from meddling with the pricing and export and importation of oil products. Several oil firms, led by the big three, rolled back prices of gasoline by 1 peso and 60 centavos per liter a minute after midnight last night. Petron, Shell, and Chevron also implemented an 80 centavo price cut in diesel prices and an 85 centavo slash in kerosene. Independent oil firms Flying V, Uni Oil, Eastern Petroleum, Phoenix Petroleum, and Total immediately followed suit. Other independent oil companies have yet to announce their own price adjustments. Industry sources said the rollbacks were prompted by movements in the global oil market and a stronger peso. The Bureau of Immigration has deported Kim Munier, a Canadian activist who reportedly took part in the anti-State of the Nation address rally last July. The 24-year-old Canadian student was earlier arrested by immigration agents Friday as she was trying to leave for Hong Kong. She was prevented from boarding her plane and later detained at the Bureau of Immigration's detention center in Camp Bagong Diwa, Taguig. Reports said Munier had been on the Bureau's watch list for engaging in political activity, a violation of her visa conditions. She was the second foreigner to have been tagged in the anti-State of the Nation address rally after Dutch activist Thomas van Beersen. And with that, we conclude the 12 o'clock edition of the Network News. This is Vibar reporting.
This is Business Radio.